This week on the Alpha Quorum Show, I sit down with a 28-year-old man who was once a homeless IV heroin user. He hasn't seen or spoken with his mother since he was 4 years old. At age 12, he ran away from home and began numbing with drugs and alcohol. At 15, he was legally adopted by a woman who soon passed away. He spent years homeless and panhandling, living in the dark flood tunnels running underground in Las Vegas. He then met Taco Mike Spurgin, who showed him love and support when he needed it the most. He checked into treatment at CrossRoads of Southern Nevada for 6 months. He now has 18 months of sobriety, is in the healthiest relationship of his life, is working as an apprentice in a local glazier union, and helps other men find sobriety. His wisdom and maturity will astound you as you learn from a young man who is living life with no excuses.
If you're a man that controls his own destiny, a man that is always in the pursuit of being better, you are in the right place. You are responsible. You are strong. You are a leader. You are a force for good. Gentlemen, you are the Alpha, and this is the Alpha Quorum.
Welcome back to the Alpha Quorum Show. Brad Singletary here. I'm excited to continue our series on addiction and addiction recovery. Our guest tonight is one of the youngest visitors we've ever had on the Alpha Quorum Show. He's a 28-year-old and he has 18 months of sobriety. And we just talked a little bit before the show, and he's got some really amazing things that he's going to share with us, where he's been, the difficulty that he's been through, and what he's doing now, and just the wisdom and the spirit of this guy. You're going to really know that you're talking to someone who's on his way to greatness here. So I first learned of Jacob Short, who's our guest today. I first learned of him from our Facebook group. And by the way, for those of you that don't know, if you just go to facebook.com, I think it's groups, and then Alpha Quorum, you can find there's a private group there. There's probably 1,600 guys maybe from all across the world, mostly, I would say, mostly in the Western United States. But so someone reached out on there, and there was something about a visit. He'll have to tell me how that went down here in a minute. But someone, an older man, a retired guy, he knew about Jacob he was in a treatment center, and he went to visit with him. And I'll let Jacob expound on that a little bit more. But then I also heard from Taco Mike, who knew Jacob, and he said, this might have been the last time I talked to you, Taco Mike, so how about hollering at your boy over here? But he said, this Jacob Short is someone that needs to be on our show. He's done amazing things. He's made these great strides, and we're going to learn exactly what that is tonight. So, gentlemen, please welcome to the Alpha Quorum Show, Jacob Short.
Thank you, Brad. I really appreciate it. I'm super grateful to be here tonight. Thank you.
He was talking about how nervous he was to come in, and I said, man, I've done 115 of these, and I'm still nervous too. So appreciate you being here. So just start from a general perspective about who you are. You said you're 28. Talk about, your job, and then we'll break into, how substances became an issue for you, what kind of problems that created, how did you find your way out of that? And so let's just start with, who are you and what are you all about? And
for sure, man. Well, I'm originally from Orange County, California. My parents, I came out here when I was 4 in 1999, when my parents divorced. And man, I've been out here ever since. Went to Shadow Ridge High School.
Okay, I know Shadow Ridge.
Yep. And right now I'm working as a union glazier apprentice.
Okay.
Before that, for the last about maybe a year, I was a stagehand, freelance.
Okay.
Yep. And then, so.
All right. So what are some of the things you like to do?
I work a lot. I love work. I dive into work, man. I like to go into different recovery meetings, different ways to be of service, going to shows. Me and my girl, we go out all the time. We just went to the Pinball Hall of Fame last week.
I still haven't been there, man. I got to go check that out.
Dude, it's epic, man. It's so much fun.
So you talked about recovery programs and stuff like that. First, I want to go back to that thing about the visit. So you were in a treatment center, I think here in Las Vegas, maybe.
Yep.
Is that what it was? And then someone from the Alpha Quorum went to visit with you. How did that even get? That had to be a little strange for a stranger to show up and say, like, I'm here. Hi, like I'm here to visit with you. How did that even come about? Do you remember what that was?
Yeah. Oh man, it was super, super cool. So, Mike or Taco Mike invited me to the Alpha Quorum.
Okay.
And, so he had suggested that I reach out to some of the guys. Cause like at that point in my sobriety, I had pushed everybody away. Like all of my family, immediate family, that I only have a couple immediate family members, and pushed them all away. You know, I pushed all my friends away, I was alone. And he had suggested that I put it in the Facebook group, like, hey, you know, like, I'm in a treatment facility. I'm kind of by myself. I'm trying to do the right thing. And, you know, I could kind of use some support from some solid dudes, and a few people hit me back, and, you know, I FaceTimed with someone, and Mike Nash ended up coming to visit me twice.
Wow. So man, dude, I got goosebumps from that, because that's exactly what this whole thing is about. We're not very good alone. And I don't mean women. We're not very good when we don't have men around us.
Yep.
Even the womanizer needs men in his life, you know, and so that's the whole part of why this was created. And I guess, you know, that he was kind of one of the founding members. I think he bought some of the podcast equipment that we're using right now. Taco Mike is just, he knows some things about life, and for sure about, you know, brotherhood. And so I'm so glad that and so you're a product of that. And that's what got me a little goosebumpy, that here's someone right in front of me right now who is a strong enough man to be representing what it is we're trying to teach, which is we got to be responsible and kind of level ourselves up. We best do that around other men. So then he said, ask for some love. That's what he's telling you to do.
Yep.
Go tell your situation on the Facebook group. And you said, I'm in a treatment center.
Yep.
I could use some good dudes around me. I'm trying to get my life squared away.
Yep, exactly. And you know, it's crazy. Taco Mike's been a huge support. I mean, since I was maybe 16 years old, you know, a good portion of my homelessness and my addiction, Taco Mike was there, never judging me, supported me 100%. And it took a lot of putting myself through pain to be humble enough to like reach out and get help. Even, you know, like by the time I got to CrossRoads, I was so desperate. You could have told me skipping butt naked down the street would help me in some way, and I would have done it. So when he said to reach out, man, I was willing to do it. You know, I was finally humble enough to be like, hey man, you know, I'm going through it right now, you know?
Man, that's powerful. So you did that, and I guess you have access to that. If you're in the center, you're able to type this in and you're able to see, and then you get this arranged with Mike Nash, who comes out. And what was that like when he shows up? You didn't know who he was before?
Nope.
He checks in at CrossRoads as a visitor, and how did that go for you?
It was super cool, man. He's a super, super nice guy. We talked about family. We talked about just something that, you know, I hadn't had in a long time. Just a nice, normal conversation with someone that didn't want nothing from me. Just wanted to be there. And like, that was really nice. I needed that, you know, cause the majority of the people that I was used to dealing with, only dealt with me because they wanted something. 9 times out of 10, not always the case, but majority of the time that's how it is. So for someone to go out of their way, spend their time, money, and gas to come visit me, like that was awesome. And we just sat there and for at least a good hour and a half, 2 hours, and just talked, man. Just not about anything specific. We just talked.
You know, one of the themes that goes along with addiction recovery is spirituality, and I want to dive into that more a little bit later, but just because I'm thinking of this right now, there's a New Testament passage about, you know, when you visit with the person who's down, when you visit with the sick people and the people in jail, and when you do that is pure religion. That is pure spirituality. And I worked in a treatment center actually before, and they talked, part of the program was spirituality, but they didn't want us going off on any of these, you know, any particular dogma or any particular religious belief, but and so the simplest form of spirituality, as I taught it, was just connection.
Yep.
And so you had an opportunity to ask for connection. And some people showed up. So Mike did.
Mm-hmm.
And just the conversation itself was connection. See, to me, that is a spiritual practice, if you ask me.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm going to sacrifice some things, some time. I'm going to serve this younger guy.
Mm-hmm.
You're in your 20s. He's, retirement age. And he comes in and you just have this warm experience.
Yeah.
How did it wrap up? How did the end of the conversation go?
I don't quite remember specifically how our conversation went. I just know that when we split ways, like I had made a friend, and he ended up coming back a second time, and we sat there and we talked, and it was awesome.
Wow. Are you still in touch at all, or?
Not recently, no. You know what? Now that we talked about it, I'm going to reach out to him.
Yeah, you got to. We're going to send him this episode on Thursday and let him know that
right.
That made an impact. So you talked about homelessness. I want to just jump in here to your, the nature of addiction for you and kind of when that began and just the whole course of that. It sounds like it was a decade or a long period of your life.
Yep,
how did it first start? Teenage years or whenever that began.
It's quite the epic. Are you ready? Do you want to hear the whole thing?
Exactly. Yes.
Okay. So it all like traces back to when I was about 12 years old. That's when I took my first drink and, my first hit of pot. And the best way I could describe it is if you're working 12 hours a day and you finally get home and you kick your boots off and you can finally, like, that's what it felt like to take my first drink. Right. And so that opened up a doorway for me to continually pursue different avenues to get outside myself. Right. And so I ended up running away at the age of 12 and spent 3 years couch surfing in and out of friends' houses, partying, drinking, party drugs, the whole thing. And I couch surfed my way into a friend's house and, his mom ends up legally adopting me.
Wow.
Incredible woman. And sad to say that about 2.5, 3 years later, she ends up passing away right before I turned 18. And so, I went from, having troubles at home, like as a young kid, I ran away. This woman was kind enough to legally take me into her home, adopt me. She got me back into school. I was on track to finish high school. And so when she passed away, my whole world just came crashing down. And, I went back to right back to what I knew, which was, drugs and alcohol. And so my stepdad kicks me out of the house. And I just before I turned 18, I came back to Las Vegas and ended up staying with an extended family member, my uncle, and got introduced to opiates. Well, I mean, I was a heavy drinker before I found opiates, right? I was a full-blown alcoholic. But when I found opiates, the whole thing just shifted and it got incredibly worse. So by the time my uncle kicked me out, maybe 6 months after I got back to Vegas, I was a full-blown homeless, couch surfing, panhandling, the whole nine, just on the streets, just running amok,
Wow. Were there times, was it just, were there times where it wasn't much fun at all? It was just, you're chasing this thing and, you can't enjoy it, or was it, did you feel like you were just living it up? What was was it actually pleasurable or what was?
That's a good question. So I'd be lying if I said a lot of times weren't fun. And, even though you're homeless and you're dirty and like all the things, that come with that, and that it's a miserable state of existence, right? But you get okay with that. And there's a lot of times where you do end up having fun in those circumstances, either be with other people around you or, getting loaded or whatever. I'd be lying if I had told you that it was all miserable. It was 99% miserable, but there was a small percentage that was fun. Yeah.
So how about the homelessness thing, man? That's wild to think, you're just this young, healthy looking guy today, but I'm guessing that was, you talked about being dirty, for example, or you talked about earlier before the show about living in the tunnels. There's a whole network in Vegas of these underground tunnels there for water. when it rains, there's flash floods. And so it's got to have a place to go. And there's it's like a subway system under there.
Yep.
And you were not that far from here where my office is right now, but
that's incredible.
Talk about the homelessness experience. That's wild.
You get okay not being okay, you get used to the grind. It's like a hamster wheel, wake up, hustle, get what you need, and then do it again. And it's just day in, day out, same thing. And so you get so used to that routine that, it just becomes okay. You're just acclimated,
This is normal now.
This is normal. Yep, exactly. My twisted state of perception was just okay, even though it wasn't by any means. Like the way people treat you was okay, because like I had no self-worth,
Mm-hmm.
The things that I did to other people to survive and because when you're in addiction or alcoholism, you don't want to do bad things to get what you need, but it feels like survival. It feels like if I don't do this, but in terms of homelessness, they go hand in hand, so, for a long time, like the reason why I ended up in the tunnels was because I felt safer alone, so I found the most secluded tunnel I could find in a decent area so I could panhandle and stuff, because I don't like stealing. I'm not a good booster or anything like that, And so I decided that it would be better to be by myself. It's safer, I had I had 4 pallets, 2 stacked on top of each other up against the wall. And, it was crazy. It's crazy. It set up little booby traps on the
so
way
you
into
could
my
hear
tunnel.
somebody coming or whatever.
Yeah.
Man. So you were in and out of that. Were there times in that period, and how long was that period of homelessness? And what happened? Was there intermittent times of, you're hanging out with a buddy who's got a place or something, or?
Yeah, for sure. So, besides being locked up, there'd be times where, like Taco Mike gave me a place to stay. There'd be times where friends would try to help me, would try to get, help me get straight or give me an opportunity, like help me get work or something. But, I wasn't in the right frame of mind. Besides being like physically addicted, mentally, I was not in the right frame of mind to be able to accept any help, no matter how much I wanted to. So every time I would get an opportunity, I would end up burning that bridge because of the way I was living, And so yeah, there were short periods like in 2020, right before I got sober, I spent about a year at a friend's house. The only reason it lasted that long is because they were all using too. So,
So you said it felt safer to be alone. Why is that? Is that because, the streets are mean, or because of how all the people were in your life before? Was this like before drug use and homelessness? You had this, I don't know, fear of people, or it felt safer to be disconnected?
Yes and no, in terms of like from the past. I still carry a lot of trauma from the past, from my childhood and stuff. And so, I'm a survivor, and I in that, like in my homelessness, I did feel it safer to be alone, but there were times where like I would buddy up with someone, but just like how I was a user and a manipulator, everyone else around me was too, and so I just found it better, like if I was by myself, I could trust I could trust my surroundings. I could rest semi easily, knowing that someone isn't going to rob me in the middle of the night, for the most part.
Mm-hmm. So, you seem like just the nicest guy ever. You seem like you got a heart of gold. You seem like you got all good in you right now. And I'm sure we're all working on ourselves and things. Yeah. Maybe you're not perfect. I'm not either. But do you think that this path, what were some of the awful things that it brought out from you? You said you were a user and manipulator, but
yeah.
And I'm a mental health therapist with 25 years of experience looking at people and listening to them. And when I'm talking to you right now, I don't hear user or manipulator. But what were the shadow side of things that came out as a result of, fear, as a result of the substance use and homelessness and all that?
Well, that's what I was kind of saying before, is it's like, it's not really the person. You could take a bad person, get them addicted, and their addiction, their alcoholism causes them to do things out of character because it's survival, right? So like in my sober state of mind, I wouldn't rob somebody, right? And so I'll give you an example. There was a guy, and I wish I could find this person, because I would absolutely make amends, because I've been making a lot of amends for my past, two people specifically. But there was a guy that, took me in. It was cold. It was like just after Christmas, before New Year's. And, he took me in, and, I was there for maybe about 4 or 5 days. He left to go on a trip, left me home alone, trusted me. And that withdrawal set in, and I took, some expensive things from his house and pawned it to get what I needed, and I never went back. So just, that's one example. I've never like physically hurt anybody to pursue my addiction and my alcoholism, but I have compromised my morals as a person, and I'm very, very, ashamed, I don't think is the right word. I'm not proud of my past, but I can't change it. So I just try to make better decisions, and I try to make it up to those people,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I may be all over the place here. Sorry if I'm just scattered here. You guys are listening to this, but, family. So you ran away at age 12, and you were adopted by this other lady. At what age were you when that happened?
I was about 15.
Okay.
She adopted me. Yep.
So 12 years old, you run away. 15 years old, you're completely adopted by someone else, which took a legal process and all that. Yep. What about family of origin stuff? I mean, do you have any contact? Is there anything of connection there at all?
My parents split when I was about 4 years old. My mother also suffers from alcoholism and mental illness. So she's in California. I haven't talked to her since I was about 4. And my father and I aren't really on speaking terms. We speak occasionally. But so it was my father, my biological brother, my stepsister, and my father's wife.
Okay.
Which was my stepmother. And so the home environment that my brother and I and my stepsister grew up in was very mentally abusive from my father's wife. Yeah. And so, and don't get me wrong, that's not to say that me running away was everything to do with them. It had mostly to do with my misbehaving, my behavior. It wasn't a very comfortable place to be, but we wanted for nothing, and like looking back at it now, I see my part in it, and so I don't want to place the blame solely on them, even though it was a very uncomfortable place to be as a child. I definitely had a big part in me running away,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. So you didn't talk to your mom, your biological mom, after you were 4 years old. She's just struggling with her, whatever's going on in her life. And do you hear any updates? Do you know anything about any of that? I mean,
when I was in treatment, one of her best friends reached out to me to see if we could track her down. And that's about the closest experience I've had to her, which was very emotional, and I tried my best to see what I could do to track her down, but I couldn't find anything,
So even though you're saying, you've got some trauma, you've got your residual things, obviously, some of that, and then when we start using, we traumatize ourselves with things, but
absolutely,
there's a lot of wounding there. There's a lot of hurt and things there. But man, somehow you've got this resilience. You've got this. You're out here doing union work. You're getting it done. You said that's what you love the most is the working.
Yeah.
So hardship has been really a theme throughout your whole life. How did you get the strength to just be alone, suffer from what drug use and drinking did to you? How did you get the strength for carrying on, even though you were numbing yourself?
I don't think it was strength, man. I think I was just escaping. I wanted to die, but I was too much of a coward to do it. So I was just running away. Like I was the biggest coward. You know, it wasn't really strength I mean, in my opinion, you know, like it was survival. Absolutely. And, you know, it just, I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. So you can have the strength to survive. You can keep your body alive.
Yep.
You can eat just enough, sleep just enough, and be safe just enough to survive and be a living being. But you felt like it wasn't a lot of strength because you were running away from everything that was real.
Yeah. I was running away from myself, my problems, the mistakes that I've made, the pain that I've caused, like by making those mistakes to the people that just wanted nothing but to help me, you know? So, but no, I mean, perseverance, definitely, like perseverance, but I don't know. I look back and I don't feel very, very strong. I feel very cowardly in the way that I was acting and thinking, you know?
So you're out there, your drug of choice is alcohol, or that was your first thing that you really kind of dove into.
Yep.
You're then smoking weed as a 12-year-old. And then where did that start to progress? You said someone introduced you to opiates.
Heroin. Yep.
And was it straight to heroin? Were you using pills or whatever first, or?
I had a brief experience with pills when I was in high school, and I was like, man, this is awesome, you know? And so when I came back, a girl that I was seeing at the time was like, hey, you know, try this. And I thought it was a good idea. And, you know, like you always hear things about being physically addicted, but the thought never really crossed my mind that it would happen. So, you know, so after that first time, like it's crazy. You hear like, oh, it only takes once, maybe not one time to get physically addicted, but I was hooked on that feeling like immediately. And I was like, man, this is my solution to everything I'm feeling on the inside, you know?
Wow. So did that immediately crash and burn you? I mean, once you had that, was it everything was centered around that, you know, finding, you know, being able to use, and when was the next time I could do that?
Yeah. And it's crazy. So I was getting survivor benefits, and I had an agreement with my uncle that I was going to help him pay the rent because he was letting me stay there. And as soon as I experienced, you know, heroin, all bets were off. Like that's where all the money went, like almost immediately. And next thing you know, I was out on my butt, you know, and it just progressively got worse. And every time there was an invisible line in the sand, like, I'm not going to do this yet. I'm not going to be homeless yet. You know, I'm not XYZ. That invisible line was crossed every single time, you know?
Wow. So then at the age of 16 is the first time you were homeless. Is that around there? Was that?
No. So I was adopted at 15.
Oh, adopted at 15.
Yeah. So when my mom passed away, I came back to Vegas right before I turned 18.
Okay.
And then I turned 18, and maybe a few months after, like I was a full-blown alcoholic at this point, but shortly after, maybe a few months later, is when I discovered heroin, and everything kind of went down from there.
Wow. Dude. So you're in Vegas. I'm curious about the first day of being homeless, like literally like sleeping outside. I mean, the first time that this happens to you, what was that like, and where were you in the world and in your life? I remember it like it was yesterday, believe it or not. And you know, I share about it in meetings all the time. And so you know, it's like I think it was right after Christmas. You know, it's cold as heck and it's windy, and I remember my uncle kicks me out, and it's actually not. We were in Old Henderson, right? And that's where we were staying at the time, and so I remember the feeling of just being like, oh crap, I got nowhere to go. You know, I'm all alone. And I go to the playground in the apartment complex, and it's windy, and I pulled out my trusty old foil, you know, and and I remember thinking, well, you know, I don't have any options, but at least I got this, you know, and like, you know, I remember us sitting there, and it's crazy. You would think that would be a wake up call. Like, oh crap, I have no one, I have nothing, I have no money. Like I'm screwed. You know, I'm doing this bad drug, and it wasn't, you know, and I ended up, taking a bus like all the way across town, and my friend snuck me in for the night. And like, I don't remember, what happened the next day, but I just remember that like, I felt the feeling of as long as I had that in my pocket, like I was okay, even though nothing was okay, you know? Wow. So being outside, you didn't have anywhere to go. you've got you got your foil in your pocket. And when did it kind of go even worse from there? When did it decline even further for you?
So, at first it was like small amounts, and then the amounts start getting bigger, right? And like the homelessness, that in itself, the alcohol and the heroin definitely made the homelessness more bearable. But the thing that I could think back, or the first time that I could think back to was right after my 18th birthday. I ended up going to jail for a straw in my pocket. This is like shortly after, right? And then shortly after I get out of jail, I go back to the trap house I'm staying at, and I'm riding around with someone, and he injected me for the first time with a mixture of heroin and coke, and that was the catalyst that would spark the rest of the best way I could describe it is incomprehensible demoralization.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Incomprehensible demoralization.
Yep.
Yeah. That's a 12-step word there, phrase. So, man, you're just, and what about things like food and you're sleeping in a tunnel with pallets around you and whatever, blankets or whatever you have for warmth. It's pretty hot here in the summer. I guess it's a little cooler maybe under there, but how in the hell did you even survive, like with the need to eat and to have water? The
kindness of others was, I wasn't a big thief, I suck at it because, I don't know why, but I walk into a store with my big old backpack and people would just stare right at me, So mainly it was either, hustling up change for food and water, or people were just kind enough to help me. Like, seriously, if it wasn't for the kindness of strangers, there's no way I would have survived out there. 1,000%.
Wow. That's a conversation with just some of the people in my life who, on one side of the spectrum, people say, don't give food to homeless people. You're probably enabling their drug use and whatever else. And others say, you give to anybody who asks you for something. You give to, that's which is the right way to do it. Are you enabling? But in your case, you're saying that's what kept you alive. Mm-hmm. And you're here today because you stayed alive long enough to get some sense about it and start to pull it around. So that's interesting that you say you seem to have a lot of gratitude for people who just are handing you money or, giving you food or whatever it might've been. Mm-hmm. Was there any kind of connection out there in this world? I mean, you're just using with people, you run across people, you like to stay alone and maybe sleep alone, but I'm guessing you have some involvement with people out there on the streets.
Oh yeah, for sure. And it's funny, like throughout that whole journey, I end up meeting who's now, I haven't talked to her in a while, but her name's Amanda, and she is she's LDS, and she was a big person in my life for a very long time, a big support. Like, I didn't have anybody, but I had Amanda, and she would give me money and food and help me out, but more so, like, she was compassionate and kind and caring, and like most people aren't like that to someone that was in my state. And so through her, I ended up meeting Taco Mike, and then Taco Mike also became one of my biggest supporters. And, going back, I really wish I could have taken them on what they were trying to do for me instead of, not being ready to change, like they even came to visit me in jail a couple times, and like, that's huge for someone in that position, like they were huge in my life. Yep. Amanda and, I don't want to put her last name out there, but Amanda and Taco Mike, dude, huge. I mean, huge, like even just even the little things that they would do, which
was it preachy? Was it like, hey, you're being an asshole, you're being an idiot, you need to stop this? Or was it like,
not at all.
How's your day going? I mean, was it, they knew that you were stuck in this thing. They probably knew what was going on, but did they look down at you and say, come on, what's the matter with you?
Dude, not in the slightest. Not just the most sincere and caring and just genuine love and just being of service to another human being, and that's what it's all about. It's just being of service. It's just, I'm so grateful to them in so many ways.
So you, I guess, knew that you weren't ready to change at that point. So you're getting help. They're helping you find a place to stay. They're, meeting up with you here and there, just, offering whatever support, but you knew you were just kind of, I guess you were playing a game with that too. You talked about you had to do whatever sometimes to survive.
Well, yes and no. So, yes, I was very manipulative, and yes, I was a user, but like to me, they were like family. And so I don't know, I was definitely very manipulative with Mike and Amanda, but I wasn't only like talking to them or doing that. Like I genuinely wanted to be better. It's just, it was very hard. It's very hard.
So talk about when it began to change for you, and maybe there was a long process, maybe years before you actually did it. You tried, were there attempts? Did you go to detox at some point, but you went right straight back? What was the process of change and deciding to change? You've been doing this maybe for years and in this kind of rut with it, but talk about the change process for you and how it began and what it was like along that journey of sobering up and getting yourself squared up.
So, there comes a point to where you want to change, you just don't know how. Like it genuinely feels like, there's no way out, there'll never be a way out. This is how your life is going to be forever, and, so the first instance that I ever had with like recovery or treatment or anything like that was when I got put into drug court. And now I didn't accept drug court because I wanted help, or that doesn't make sense. Not that I didn't want help. I was trying to run away from the charges, right? I was trying to take the easy way out and the quick way out of jail. So even though I was miserable, in my addiction, I was looking for an easy way out of the responsibilities that I caused myself, right? Mm-hmm. So, that was the first experience I had in recovery. But again, like, even though I was miserable, I don't know if I was ready to change yet. So I was doing the meeting thing and doing the classes and the treatment and the therapy and all those good things, right? And so I was just, going through chance after chance after chance. And, I ended up going to West Care, which is a treatment out here. And, that was like my first taste of recovery, right? I didn't know what it looked like to have long-term sobriety. Like I would get out of there and I would actually end up getting in trouble and going to prison. But like it planted a seed. Like I knew where to go. It took years and years of desperation. Like I had to beat myself to a point to where I was so miserable and on the brink of death that it was either seek out help or die. That's what it took. It took a very long time of being miserable to finally seek out help. And so I knew where to go. I knew to go to treatment.
Wow, that's powerful for us listening to this, that, we see someone fail and they blow out of these, opportunities because they go back to it and relapse and whatever. But the seed is planted that you had some clean time. There were some periods there. There were some nights you had a warm bed and food and people to talk to, and there was something planted there. And so that's great to hear, actually, that even if you were far away from actually really doing the internal work and getting yourself in a program of recovery, you knew what it was like. And that's just a great thought. I
like that you said that, in internal work, because it's a lot of work. You can't just get sober and expect to like poof, I'm whole again, like I took away the drugs and the alcohol. No, like the drugs and the alcohol are the solution to the problem. I'm the problem. The way I think is the problem. So you take away the drugs and the alcohol, I'm left with me. It takes a lot of work and a lot of solid men. Like I have a lot of solid men in my life that call me on my shit. Like they don't let me get away with anything, and that's exactly what I need.
Wow. So where did the real change? So you went through the motions to get into the drug court program. Maybe that would, minimize your incarceration and whatever. And it was an easy way to deal with your legal problems kind of.
Yeah.
But when did it really start to go like, okay, hold on a minute. I really think I need to do something serious here.
So, I mean, even being an IV user wasn't enough, being a felon, a convicted felon wasn't enough. All the people that loved me and cared about me telling me like, hey dude, get your stuff together or you're going to die wasn't enough, Can I tell you like the last, like the straw that broke the camel's back?
Yeah.
So New Year's Eve, 2019, right? A friend of mine, I'm actually right down the street at the Smiths over there, and a friend of mine's like, hey dude, it's cold and it's rainy. Let's go hang out at a hotel. We can have some drinks and ring in the new year. I'm like, cool. So we get 2 bottles of Sailor Jerry's. Sailor Jerry's, that used to be my favorite, right? And so yeah, we got the Sailor Jerry's, and remember, like, I'm a full-blown opiate addict at this point, right? And so we hang out at the hotel room, and I must have finished 3/4, if not the whole bottle by myself, right?
Wow.
Yeah. And I got blacked out, and I ended up passing out. I hit my face on like a dresser, broke a bunch of my teeth, and these are fake.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so the next day, it's New Year's Day, right? And he drops me off. I go back to my tunnel, and I had some money, and I'm calling my dealer, my plug or whatever, and I'm hungover. I'm withdrawing, right? And not only will none of my friends answer the phone. No one's answering the phone. I don't have a single person to call. My dealer won't even answer the phone. So it's New Year's Day. I'm hungover. I'm withdrawing, and I'm miserable. And I wanted to die so badly. And it was at that point that like I said this foxhole prayer, man. And I was just, like, God, if you're out there, just please take this from me, right? And like in my mind, I'm thinking, oh man, I hope God just takes this all away immediately. And it, because I like instant gratification, but it doesn't work like that. It took a couple months, but then finally, I genuinely believe that God planted the seed in my heart to be like, dude, you know where to go, get your butt over there. And so that's when I went to CrossRoads.
Wow. Did you just show up over there, or was there some outreach or something, or how did you get connected when it was time?
Oh man, I'm so glad you asked that, because there's an outreach program that I'm a part of. Like, I don't go out to the tunnels, but they genuinely almost just about saved my life. They didn't pull me out of the tunnels. It's called Shine a Light, the Shine a Light Foundation.
Yeah, I know Shine a Light, yeah. Yeah.
So, dude, when I got to treatment, I was there on a county grant, which is like 30 days of treatment, right? But I met, do you know Rob Banghart and all them? Oh, well, amazing guys. They pulled me into their inner circle. They were like, man, we're going to help you out. 'Cause I told them my story. They're like, we're going to help you out. They paid for 90 days of treatment, 90 days of sober living. And so I got myself there, right? I took the first couple baby steps, and I genuinely believe God did the rest, man. He got me, like, it just so happened that, the Shine Light guys were at CrossRoads. They took me under their wing, and they made sure that like I was okay. 'Cause if I had just 30 days of treatment, I don't know if I would still be here right now. I needed that 90 days away, and that, that chance to get a foundation,
Wow. So you show up over there, and this is a residential deal. So detox, residential, Yep. You stay there 90 days.
Yep.
And what was that first few days like?
Oh, dude, it sucked. It was so bad.
You're all sick and like miserable, but something kept you there. What was that part?
Man, I was 145 pounds soaking wet, arms swollen from just, IV use. And I was inches and seconds away from leaving. And a couple of the people there got me to stay. And, something in my heart told me that there is nothing out there, like right now I have a bed and I have a chance, I have a chance at life. And I don't know, man, I almost left. I really almost did. I'm so glad I didn't, but something told me to stay. And the staff at CrossRoads talked me down, you know, and they explained like, you know, people are dying every day from this thing. It was kind of a beautiful experience, even though it was miserable. It was a beautiful thing. If it wasn't for, you know, God and the people at CrossRoads, the staff there, I probably would have left, man.
Wow. So you had some openness. I mean, you wanted to leave. You felt like, you know, you didn't want to do all of that, but there was some openness to listen. There's some openness to kind of hear and feel and whatever these, you know, the work that God was doing for you.
Yeah.
So, all right. So now you get through the withdrawal part and you're there.
Yeah.
And what was the process like for you of really getting into your wounds and the deep problems? You know, you talked about your thoughts were the problems, like you were the problem.
Right. Dude.
When did you start really catching on to that idea?
So, you know, like I said, I've been to treatment before and, you know, it didn't really work out. But this time around, I like to call it the gift of desperation, you know, like I was so willing to do anything, you know, to anything it took to stay sober because, you know, up until that point, you know, like I was just done, you know, in my heart, I was just done. So, I started the residential treatment program. I was in the housing. And so part of that is going to intensive outpatient, right?
Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And, you know, so I had a really amazing therapist. Her name was Janet. And, so whenever like she would ask questions, I was the first one to raise my hand, you know, like anything that I could do to learn about myself or whatever, like I would do it, you know, and like the therapy really helped me get through some traumatic things. And that was really the start of me realizing that, holy crap, dude, like the problem isn't the drugs, it's me. I'm the problem, you know, like my alcoholism, my addiction causes me to do things, you know, out of survival. Right. And then in turn, it brings up the guilt, the shame. And then in turn, I do it more and more and more. It's this vicious cycle. And so in order to break that, I have to learn about it. And then another big part of treatment was, you know, the mandatory meetings. They would have panels there. And so that was that. So like, I feel like the treatment aspect is important for getting away from the drugs and alcohol and learning about your trauma and the things that you need for your psyche. And then the other portion that I just mentioned was the key for like the long-term aspect, the foundation for the rest of, you know, for when you get out, because you can't just stay in treatment the whole time. The rubber has to hit the road eventually, right? So what are you going to do? Are you going to be prepared, or are you going to go back to your old ways?
Dude, I love the way you're talking, man. I am just inspired by this. And you said the gift of desperation. That may be the title of this episode. But was there any resistance? I mean, initially, yeah, it sounds like there was, and you wanted to leave. But once you knew that this was the right thing to do, and this is where I'm going to stay, were you ever like, oh man, this is a bunch of bullshit, all this God talk and all this, you know, all this about your thinking, and now I'm in therapy. Was there any part of you that just didn't like it or resisted it?
Honestly, this time around, no, dude. The only thing I thought was BS was all the minute rules that they had there. And but like I told you before, I can make it look really good on paper. So I was following the rules, not because I wanted to, but just because I wanted everybody to think like, hey, look, he's doing so good. But it's weird, like the whole fake it till you make it thing, because like me faking it that long, like for the first month, by month 2 and 3, like I was actually doing it because it was the right thing to do. You know, like we had a guy at CrossRoads that if you didn't make your bed in a certain amount of time, he'd come through and jail style just flip the whole match. You know, it was kind of funny, right? But like it was little things like that. And now I can understand the importance of it, right? That structure, because on the street, you do what you want when you want. It's not healthy. You have to have boundaries and rules and discipline. And like, even though little things like making your bed, being, you know, checking in by a certain time, stuff like that, it prepares you, you know, for the long run, even though it doesn't seem like it.
Wow. So this 18 months you had, this all began with the stuff at CrossRoads. You went there, you were there for 90 days. And then did you continue some aftercare after that?
Yeah. Shine a Light paid for 90 days of sober living.
Oh, 90 days sober living. That's like a little apartment group home type of deal.
Yeah.
Everybody's kind of working on it. They're going to watch you to make sure what you're doing.
Well, yeah. So like I did really well towards the end of CrossRoads, and excuse me. I did really well towards the end of CrossRoads. So Shine a Light opened up with, do you know what a 3/4 house is?
Yeah, that's like a halfway house, but a little different.
Yeah, but less supervision, right? But like by the time you get there, you should be doing what you're supposed to do by yourself. So there's accountability there, but it's not as strict. And so they had just opened one, and they allowed a few of us from CrossRoads to go there. And so that's where I spent the next 90 days. It was a sober living, but it was a little like lower intensity care.
Okay. And you were doing meetings, and we were all in the 12 steps by that point?
Yep. We were all well, so you know how it goes. Some people are serious. Some people are just looking for the place to stay. So I just hung with the winners, I hung with the winners and I stuck to it. And, yeah, so we got into the 12 steps of recovery, and yeah, man, just started doing the deal,
So now this would be 6 months. So you did 90 days with, 90 days at CrossRoads, 90 days in the sober living. And then what happened after that? Where'd you go when you left the sober living house?
Man, dude, God showed up for me. Like I jumped into the 12-step program, right? Just like I did at CrossRoads. Like my butt was on fire because it was like my life depended on it, because it did, And so, God started showing up in crazy ways, man. Like just, spiritual experiences left and right. Boom, boom, boom. Everything just started lining up, man. And, so, through one of the people that I met in the program, like I ended up getting this really decent job as a stagehand, freelancing. And then, I moved in with a friend of mine, started renting a room. And it's crazy how God like puts little things on your plate little by little. Like if I would have got the whole buffet right away, I probably would have messed it up or blown it, dude. But little by little, like I didn't know how to pay bills. I didn't know how to do anything. I didn't know how to be a man, And so little by little, God added more and more to my plate as I was ready for it. And so eventually I was able to stand on my own 2 feet,
So you more responsibility, more rewards in a way. You get a little, a little more freedom, a little bit more money, a little bit more opportunity. Things just started happening for you. And you've mentioned God a few times. Was any of that new for you? Like going into, I'm thinking when you're homeless or when you're running away from home at the age of 12 and start using it at that age, maybe there wasn't a whole foundation of that, but what was the reaction to going into a treatment center? You've been living under the tunnels and whatever. Now they want to talk about God. Was that a shocking thing for you or?
Not really. I mean, so like I was always very religious, even in the streets. I genuinely believe that like God kept me safe and kept me alive for whatever purpose, right? I still don't really know what that is. And, but back then I was only praying for my own like selfish things. Right. And so, I get out of treatment and I get into this fellowship. Right. And so I'm able to come up with, like not so much religiousness or whatever, but my own conception of a higher power and God. So like, for instance, you said you're LDS, right? So, like I believe in God the Father, but I also believe that like all religions go back to him and his glory. You know what I mean? I believe like Buddhism, I believe all religions have amazing principles. And I believe that, one ugly tree distracts from the beauty of the forest, So I think that all routes go back to him. So like, that's kind of like what I rely on, being of service to others, reliance upon upon God for me, So I think I missed your question.
Well, no, I think you answered it well. It was just for a lot of men, they hear this stuff and they go to a meeting and they're like, man, 14 people said the name of God up in here, and I don't want to do that because of whatever happened in their past or whatever their thoughts are. And so I just know that for some people that's, tricky to jump into, but for you, it was just like always in your heart. There was always a sense of spirituality there. And I can tell that now just talking to you, I can feel that. It's amazing, man. And I love your openness to that. And it sounded like that was, part of being with the desperation. For sure. I had to lean on that, and it always kind of held true. And you knew that you were being kind of protected and saved for some reason. Yeah. Well, I think you're going to have a lot of impact in this world, man. You're 28 years old, talking to maybe 300 grown ass men are going to listen to this, and a few women, and they're going to be learning from you for a long time. People are going to be hearing. I believe that I know why he kept you around.
Thank you.
Just having a few minutes here with you today. But all right. So then you were working as a stagehand. Things started to get better. Went from a halfway house or a sober living house to like your own place, or you have roommates, or what happened there?
Yeah. So, I was staying with my buddy, working and, paying rent, getting used to the rent thing. And then a couple friends that I made that worked at CrossRoads when I was there, we kept in touch when I got out, and they're serious about the recovery thing too. And we actually, their lease was up, and I was like, dude, well, why don't we get a place? We can rent a house. If there's 3 of us, we can split the bills and it'll be cheaper for all of us. And now I actually have renting a house that's in my name.
Wow.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's wild.
Yeah.
I mean, to be 28 and have that anyway is pretty impressive, but to go from, cocaine, heroin, and alcohol, living under a tunnel, like literally living underground, to now doing what you're doing now, it's miraculous, man. So
it's beautiful, man.
In terms of the 12-step stuff, are there things there that, messages or thoughts or part of the process? What made that magical for you? What made that so profoundly helpful to you?
Because, when I came around, started coming around, I was terminally unique, no one, like, who could ever relate to, my situation. Who knows how I felt? But then, like, you hear a bunch of people, and like I said, like, I'm surrounded by a bunch of solid dudes that don't let me get away with nothing, and like, I hear these guys, sometimes they have worse stories, sometimes they have, that's not as bad, but like, I can always relate because, like, I know I felt like that, or I've been through that, you know what I mean? And that was what I was like, man, like, that's crazy. Like, I'm not alone, like, my situation isn't really that unique, like, a lot of bad things happen to a lot of people, and like, if these guys can turn their lives around and have a beautiful life, maybe I can too. And I was like, man, this is it. This is where I need to be,
Wow. So do you attend that stuff, daily, weekly? How often are you trying to be involved with meetings and stuff?
Not as much as I was in the first year. First year I was like every single day, but it's kind of beautiful. I mean, I'm not doing as much as I would like, but as you recover and as you go on, life gets more full, more things are added, like work and girlfriend and all those things. And so no, I go at about 3 or 4 a week, but and I'm helping other dudes in the program, and every day, like, I have a list of like 25 dudes. Like, I get up like 30, 45 minutes early every day so I can say, hey, good morning, how you doing? Every single day, day in, day out.
I guess people did that for you, and that's why you're returning that love now, because that was so meaningful to you. And again, I really feel like, spirituality, at the heart of spirituality is connection. Mm-hmm. Man, dude, I'm just so impressed with you, Jacob.
Thank you.
So what are some of the tough things? You mentioned trauma and stuff like that. Do you participate in therapy? Have you done some of that work? Are you reading? Like, what are the habits or the activities or things that you go to meetings regularly? Mm-hmm. What other things have gotten you to this point?
Routine, being of service to others is huge, because like in my alcoholism, I was selfish. That's all I cared about was me, you know? So being of service in any way, like whether it's to someone else that's an alcoholic or a drug addict, or some just opening the door for somebody, you know, stuff like that. You know, routine, like I wake up, so I wake up about 4 a.m.
Oh my word.
Well, for work, you know, I pray, I send my good morning text, I go to work, you know, and then I just get into that routine. Like, what can I do? Like meditate. Yeah. Like you said, I read books, and I try to, you know, be positive, because a lot of people think that, you know, admitting that you're an addict or an alcoholic is weak, but that's the strongest thing you could ever do. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard. It's hard. It's almost easier to stay in that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's, I guess, why a lot of people do it for so long. And until you get to that, until you receive the gift of desperation.
Yeah.
I love how you worded that.
Thank you.
So what about relationships? You've got all these friendships. You've got, you said, a lot of men around you. You're one of those strong men for other dudes, maybe who aren't quite as far along. What about dating and so forth? I mean, if you're from 12 years old and then you go through difficulty, there probably wasn't a ton of, you know, you weren't at the prom, maybe, I don't know. I mean, you know, you were already busy,
Yeah.
busy partying at that point.
You know, it's crazy. Like the first year, wasn't the healthiest mentally. So a lot of those relationships didn't really work out, but you know, I did a lot of work, got to get to where I'm at today. And, I'm actually in a very healthy relationship right now, and it's crazy. Like, we communicate. I mean, I'd be lying if I said that we didn't, go back and forth about things,
Mm-hmm.
but overall, it's the healthiest relationship I've ever had. Like, we communicate, like it's beautiful. It's give and take in the healthiest way I've ever seen, I've ever experienced.
Mm-hmm.
It's awesome. She's a little bit older than me too. So that's
I like
cool.
that.
Yeah. Like, so what I lack, she makes up what she lacks in certain ways. I make up, and we balance each other really well.
Wow. So what are the things you still need to keep focused on? You know, you've kind of really turned a corner. I mean, 18 months of sobriety from where you were to now. You got this great job. You got a great relationship. You know, you look great. You just sound healthy. You just got a lot of good things going on. What are the things that are still hard? Like, what are the things you still run into? Do you have triggers and temptations and things still? Are there, thinking problems that you still deal with? What are the things that are still tough?
So, I mean, my head gets really loud sometimes, and, being like self-conscious or how can I explain it? Like, the best way I can describe it is like my own voice yelling at me bad things, like my own head lying to me in my own voice. You know what I mean? And the way that I get outside of that is by helping people, and like, temptation and stuff like that, it hasn't really been an issue. Like, I feel like my obsession for those things has been removed a long time ago. So more or less it's like maintaining sobriety and, just getting through one day at a time, like just day by day. Like, some days are harder than others. It's not all rainbows and blowjobs like I wish it was,
Rainbows and blowjobs.
But no, man. I mean, to be honest, like the problems that I have today are all Cadillac problems, high quality problems. And so I stay grateful, and I just try to, I think the biggest thing is just, my thinking, right? Is like, it's a slippery slope. You start to relax on the things that you need to do, right? To the positive things you need to do for others and for yourself. It's easy to rest and be like, well, I'm good today. Like, I went to that meeting yesterday. I helped that guy yesterday. But, I try to remember that, if I do that, like I'm doomed, eventually it's a slippery slope. A friend of mine always tells me that the worst thing that could ever happen to an alcoholic is nothing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So what are you the most proud of? You seem, very humble, and a lot of people see the kind of being proud of yourself, like I'm talking about, is, that goes against, and that's part of the, I don't mean the self-will kind of pride or whatever, but the confidence. What are your gifts and talents that you can take ownership of and say, this is why I'm special. This is why I do have something to bring to this world, or what are your best qualities?
I feel like God has blessed me with a solid mind, like I'm very quick learner, very teachable. Those are things that have suited me very well since I've gotten sober, like especially in work, and like I pick up on things really fast. So I'm very grateful for that. Like my health, very proud of those things, even though it's not where I would like it to be. It's definitely better than where it could be, and like at the end of the day, like I'm really, really proud of just doing the right thing, man. Like for the longest time, I couldn't do it. And like, not because I didn't want to, but because like, it was just so hard. So I'm just proud of like accountability, and proud of, I'm not perfect by any means, but like compared to where I was before, like the accountability, the honesty, the, things like that. Those are the things that I'm most proud of. Like they're intangible things. Like you could take my car, the home, all that stuff. Like it really doesn't mean anything. Like the stuff that's biggest for me is those things: accountability, honesty. For a long time, I was none of those things.
That's the invisible stuff that's the real treasure, is just the knowledge that I'm on the right track. I'm doing the right thing. I'm helping people. I'm keeping myself in a place that, is healthy, and, living the best I can. What would you say to family members? There's probably not going to be a lot of people under the tunnels right now listening to this show, but their mom might be, their dad might be, their brother might be listening to this. When it comes to the family members, and, you didn't have a ton of that kind of support, but for people who love someone who's in the kind of predicaments and the circumstances that you mentioned before, what would you say to them?
It's a good question. Don't give up on them, also don't give up on them, but don't love them to death, because a lot of times, like, we love someone so much, we're willing to do anything for them, but don't give up on them, and don't give up hope. There's always a way out. And, like, I'm a testament of that, and, what else? I mean, dude, I don't really know, man. Like just not to give up. Like there is hope, and there are resources out there to get help if they want it. If they don't want to get help, there isn't a single thing anybody can say or do to convince them otherwise. And it sucks. Like that's just been my experience. Maybe not, but it's been my experience that, sometimes people have to hit their bottom before they're willing to accept help, to like go to treatment and do all that stuff, but don't give up.
So did you feel like a victim? I mean, you had a lot of reasons. You had a lot of reasons to be not doing well. Talking about even like with your mom and just things that happened with your family, and then you lost your adoptive mother. Like, were you on the pity pot, or was that a big part of your worst, when you were thinking of yourself that way?
Yeah, for sure, man. I that's one of the biggest things, man, was me playing the victim. Like I would use the bad things that happened in my past as the victim card to justify the way I was living and the things that I was doing. Like, oh, poor me. Like if only you knew the things I've been through, you would understand. Or if you only knew how I felt when I was sober, you'd understand. Right. So like, yes, playing the victim definitely played a big part in that,
So I want to wrap up here in a few minutes, man. This has been just mind blowing for me. You're one of our youngest guests we've ever had. You speak like some of the oldest, you speak like some of the most educated men that I've ever met.
Thank you.
You do have a high intelligence. I just know that. I can tell. I know that. And so
Doesn't feel like it sometimes.
And you're doing great things. You know, you're helping other men. You're waking up at 4 a.m. to text dudes to say, I'm thinking about you. I'm here for you. Good morning. Whatever it is you say. And man, it just seems like you're really living life well. You seem to have peace in your heart. You know, you're carrying yourself with great energy. Where do you see yourself going? You know, if you're going to live to be 100.
Hopefully.
You know, let's just say you got 72 years left. What do you want to do, man? What do you picture out there in your vision for your future?
You know, that's the funny thing, man, is I don't know. Like, if you would have gave me a piece of paper and a pen and said, write down everything, like everything you think you're going to do and everything you think you're going to have in a year from now, I would have sold myself short, man. Every time life gets really good, God just shows up and life gets even better. You know, I have no idea. You know, I'm just doing it one day at a time. Like, and I just, whatever it is, whatever like my destiny is, I just pray that I can be of maximum service to others. Like, I spent years and years taking from people, begging from people. And so like ultimately my goal is to, you know, use what God has given me to give it back to others. And in whatever way, if it's just sharing my experience, strength, and hope, whatever it looks like, man, that's all I care about. That's hopefully like 72 years down the line, I can, you know, pass away and be like, man, I helped someone.
Dude, I am inspired. You know, this is going to be out there in the world forever. And I can believe that you're going to continue doing this. I love when you say you're just taking it one day at a time. You're not sure. Can't even really go that far ahead, but you know, you want to do good things. You know, you want to keep yourself on the right track. And you know, you're just taking it one day at a time. That is just, there's so much wisdom in that. I can just tell that you've really taken on a lot of this. You know, when you've been to this many meetings, if you went to a meeting every day for a year, hundreds of hours of listening and listening to other people and talking yourself about what doesn't work and what does.
Yeah.
Conversation about where you are and what your needs are and learning from other people. That is just so valuable. I love that you have done so much of that. And now you're doing it right here on a Sunday night. You probably got a show you'd rather watch or a game or something you want to rather do instead. But here you are with me, bringing this high level, high value stuff, dude. I just can't even tell you how much this is profound, what you're doing here. And you're going to probably have other opportunities like this in the future. I want to have you back on this show.
Thank you. I'd love it, man. I'm honored to be here with you. Dude.
Yeah, man. We don't mess around. I don't have enough time to mess with chumps. You know, you're bringing some really valuable stuff here.
Spitting the fire, huh?
Yes, dude. I'm serious. So I believe that I know you don't want to get too far ahead of yourself, but I believe that you are destined for great things. And to me, the best stories, the best movies, the best books, the best songs are about the dude who fucked it all up and then figured it out. Yep. And the way your humility, your, kind of giving that to God. So I just believe that you're destined for, important things. And, maybe that's not money, maybe that's not fame, but I believe as a human being, you're going to bring life. People ask me sometimes what I think is the purpose of life. And I think it is really just to perpetuate life, to have a life and to bring life wherever you go. You're creating life, and then to preserve life. And you're doing all of that, man. You have a life, you got the healthiest relationship you've ever had, great job. You're bringing life, showing up, waking up every morning, bringing life to a guy who may need you that day, who may need some encouragement or support.
What's crazy though about that is, like, in a way it's almost selfish, because like in order for me to like be in this state of mind, like I have to help someone else. So like by me doing that, even though I genuinely care, it's really like reaching your hand out is like guarantee, does that make sense? Like guaranteeing like my well-being, my state of mind, my sobriety, which in turn, it's weird how it works in a weird way. Like by you caring about someone, you selfishly get to stay sober that day.
Well, and I'm not an expert on the, the neurochemistry of it or whatever, but I do know that, that's what's kept human beings alive all these, centuries and thousands of years is unity. Yeah. And so when we're helping someone, so everything we do, when we eat, it rewards us. We feel good. We feel kind of relaxed when we eat. When we've slept, we feel good. And so all of the things that perpetuate life, sex, it feels good. So it wants you to keep doing it. And service, it produces oxytocin, the love hormone or whatever, and it reduces stress. It literally chemically changes your body to serve and to connect with other people. And so your nervous system is kind of regulated by that. And so I'm no expert on the brain science of that necessarily, but I'm not surprised to hear you say that every time you're giving, you're actually receiving something that sustains you for another day of sobriety. I mean, it's beautiful, man.
It's kind of crazy how it works.
Yeah. Do you ever get sick of it? Do you ever get like, a meeting, this freaking asshole's texting me again. I don't want his problems, or I can't deal with this today. I mean, does it ever get heavy?
Not so much this asshole's texting me again, but more like, I gotta go to, I just rather, I'm tired, dude. I'd rather just stay home, watch some Netflix or something, but every time and don't get me wrong, like I do sometimes, I'm like lazy and I'm like, man, I'm not going to do it. But 9 times out of 10, when I force myself to get outside myself and do it, I feel so much better. And when I don't, I feel like crap. So definitely.
Jacob, you are something else, man. You guys were this series is about addiction and addiction recovery. And I just wanted to highlight some men who have done this in a big way. You went from losing your mother at the age of 4 years old, and you probably don't, at 4, you don't even have a ton of memory of that or life with her too much. I mean, we don't remember much at that age, and then, leaving home at the age of 12, being adopted at the age of 15, several years after that, I guess she passed. Yeah. And then, on the streets, being introduced to things, you mentioned compromising your morals just to do whatever you had to do to be able to use and to stay alive. You felt the safest alone. You're sleeping by these pallets in a cement tunnel under the city. Yeah. You panhandling and doing whatever you had to do to just get some food and whatever. And the gift of desperation was what brought you to this point. And now you got 18 months of sobriety. Yep. You are, you're helping other men who've been where you've been, and to whatever varying degree, and you're just taking it one day at a time.
Yep, one day at a time. This
is how you do it, you guys. If you're dealing with something, if you're a gambling addict, if you have any compulsive behavior, you don't have to be slamming heroin to benefit from this wisdom here. The things that you've heard Jacob talk about is exactly what can help you, and it doesn't have to be AA or any 12-step program. It doesn't have to be religion. It doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be anything other than honesty, having some hope, connection with other people that are trying to be where you also want to be. You've just kind of laid out this outline for people, and how we get to our addiction and how we get to just ridiculous behavior. It almost doesn't matter. The way out is similar for just about everybody. And you found some things that are working for you. What kind of last words would you have here? A message, to someone who's dealing with some type of addiction, or a family member of someone like that. What do you want to say, to just be, emphatic about something that has meant the most to you to get to this point?
You're loved. You're not alone, you're loved. You're not alone. There's hope. You don't, if you don't want to live like that, you don't have to. Even though it feels like there's no way out, there is, and there's a recipe to this thing. And there's a reason why millions of people have recovered from whatever it is: gambling, sex, drugs, alcohol, the whole nine, right? And not everybody's recovery looks the same. You got to find, my recovery suit might not look the same as someone else's, but there's a recipe to it, and you got to find what works for you, get connected to other men or woman if it's women, right? And reach out for help. You're not alone. You don't have to suffer in silence. You're not weak to reach out. Like, that's the ultimate strength and courage, is to reach out for help even when you don't want to,
Such a paradox, isn't it? That the thing that will bring you the most strength is the thing you're afraid makes you look the most weak.
Yep.
And I appreciate what you shared here, man. I wanted to comment on one other thing. You talked about when you shared that message in the Facebook group. You're in the recovery, you're in the treatment center, and you reached out. Mike came to visit you a couple times, and then someone else, you had some phone contact, somebody out of state.
I would have to look through my Facebook to get his name, but he's I can't think of it off the top of my head. Amazing guy, ex-military, and we FaceTimed a bunch, man. And he couldn't relate to my exact problem, right? He didn't have an addiction issue or like alcoholism, but he struggled with some mental health things, right? And we related on like how we felt, and certain things, like and then we just talked about it, and it was like a strength in numbers kind of thing. It was really cool. Even though he was halfway across the country, we FaceTimed and we talked and we connected. Even though our problems were different, we found common ground in the fact that, like, hey, we're not alone in this thing. And hey, I kind of know how that feels. I can't say I've been through that, but I can empathize,
Man, you guys, I just want to recap here with the Red 9 as we wrap this up. So our message is basically that men need to be better. And wherever you are, you may not be strung out on anything. You may not have the kind of problems that Jacob found himself in, but there are some principles that we're trying to teach here, basically that you are responsible. You can't be a victim. You got to you got to take responsibility for your actions and not be a victim and not blame others. And to change the things that you can. Some of that literally is taken right out of 12-step literature. That you're resourceful. He was resourceful even when he was homeless, because he was asking for money and people would show up for him, and he was able to stay alive long enough. Reverence is about, kind of the spirituality side, humility and gratitude and service and those kinds of things.
Accountability.
Yes.
Honesty.
Energy, engagement, endurance. This guy, Jacob, is all about those things. Discipline. That's what drives him right now and keeps him going, is discipline and some structure in his life. Discernment, the ability to correct your thoughts and to go through life with a rational view of stresses and the things that go on, and being aware of his own problematic thinking. And then distinction. This dude, I've never talked to someone who is like you. I feel like I'm in front of this sage, like, this very just profoundly wise person, man. I really mean that. I don't give fake compliments. That
means a lot.
If my wife, if her butt looks big in those jeans, I tell her. So I'm really serious when I say that, man. I appreciate you being here. You guys, until next time, no excuses, Alpha. Dude,
that was awesome.
I can't believe you, man. Can we do this again?
If you're a man that controls his own destiny, a man that is always in the pursuit of being better, you are in the right place. You are responsible. You are strong. You are a leader. You are a force for good. Gentlemen, you are the Alpha, and this is the Alpha Quorum.